There we go. Sorry about that. Welcome back, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulty there. Welcome back to our Building the ISS, part of the new series that we're going to be doing, which is tracking all of the current space missions that occur. We're just seconds here from blast off, and there we go, liftoff of our new rocket. This rocket uses much bigger parts than the last rocket. Why? Well, I'm not really sure. Basically, I decided to redesign a rocket that would be bigger because I am launching the center truss section of the International Space Station today. The center truss section houses two very large uh, radiators. And these very large radiators are very large, very important in order to dissipate the heat that's produced from all of the science and the centrifuges and everything that is occurring on the International Space Station. But because they're so large, you can see the fairing is very big. I wanted a rocket that had a little bit more of a diameter to it in order to help keep it stable during ascent, and it did a very good job. We also have 4 engines down in our first stage. It's an engine cluster, so they're not four separate engines. They function together, but they're four separate exhaust nozzles. Um, so yeah, we're working on building the International Space Station right now, so we can start tracking all of the International Space Station missions that are occurring. This is launch 2 of a potentially unlimited series, because as we continue to do missions in space, I will continue to do missions here. Um, we have the Beresheet mission that was ran on this save. That the lander in the save is actually on the moon still. We can go and visit that at any time we want to. Oh, here we go. And I accidentally launched this into the wrong inclination at first, but we had enough delta V in order to fix this. So there we go. Scent's looking good. First stage is almost burned out. So we're going to have first stage cutoff, separation, and second stage ignition coming up here in about 5 seconds. Waiting on ignition and confirmation of second stage engine ignition. So right now we're targeting a circular orbit of about 150,000 kilometers. That way we can get some pretty good intercepts. And you can see we're going into the wrong inclination, and so we need to correct that. We're up high enough now that we don't have a lot of atmospheric drag, or atmospheric drag is pretty much null and void, and so we're able to turn off from prograde and and start correcting our inclination problem that we have. We'll just make it so that upper stage has less work to do. This second stage is a beast of a second stage, lots of delta V. It's very nice for getting that upper stage into the best possible success, full potentials. Wow, words are hard today. With a nice big upper stage like this that has lots of delta V, we're able to place the upper stage into an orbit that will most likely get us a good intercept with the station, so we don't have to do any fancy maneuvering just to get an encounter, is what I meant to say the first time, but we got there. You can see that our inclinations are becoming more parallel to each other, which is exactly what we need. Good inclinations on this, or good orbital planes in the same inclination. So we'll go back to pointing prograde here, and we'll finish raising up our apoapsis. And there we go, fairing deploy, and you can see those great big radiators and the truss system. Now, the International Space Station center truss system is much larger than this one. Um, we're just trying to simulate it as close as possible without getting too overboard, because there's going to be a lot of missions ran on this save, and we don't want to bog it down with just a amazing station. So for what we're using the station for, this is close enough. We're continuing to raise our apoapsis here, 101,000 kilometers. Our periapsis is also climbing, working on getting into an orbit. Still doing good. And again, we're going to separate this upper stage into an orbit, which will have it crash back down to the Earth, so we leave no orbital debris. And there we go. Apoapsis of 121,000, a periapsis of 29,000. We're going to separate that second stage so we don't accidentally leave it in orbit. And we're going to have ignition of upper stage. We're going to finish raising our apoapsis up to that 150,000 kilometers, which in turn also raises our periapsis. We're almost in orbit. We're just a little bit too low. If we did nothing else at this point, we would be getting some pretty good atmospheric drag, and we would burn back up in the atmosphere. As you can imagine, those radiators and this truss system would not fare too well if we get them into the atmosphere. So now we're just checking out our orbits here, making sure everything's looking pretty good. We're going to target the station. And it already is targeted. So now what we need to do is we need to work on fixing the rest of our inclination. So we're going to go to where our orbits, the inclinations intersect. And we're going to do the small maneuver adjustments that we need to get them on the exact same orbital plane. We're also going to raise our orbit here and see if we have an intercept, because that would be really great if we just get an intercept. Oh, no, we don't. Wait, did we have an intercept? I think we had an intercept right at the beginning, just right when they touched. Let's see. Oh, no, we don't. Ah, shoot. Okay. Well, let's just fix this. Fix this down. So we're 150,000, 150,000. Oh, shoot. I hit the inclination. Okay, there we go. There's our maneuver. So we're going to be using 128 meters per second of delta V, and we have a total of 2,528 meters per second of delta V available for use. This upper stage also features, it's very different from the last one we used because it's bigger, like we were talking about earlier in the launch, and it uses a dual exhaust bell engine setup, and it does have onboard solar panels and batteries, and so we don't have to worry about running out of power while we're trying to get an intercept and docking. We get lined up with our next maneuver, and our burn time is going to be 16 seconds. So we're going to start burning our engine at about 8 seconds before. And oh, missed a little bit. That's okay, we'll be alright. So get that burn going, fix our inclination, and circularize our orbit at the same time. And cut off. Pretty good right there. Now we need to work on getting a intercept. I'm going to have to go fast forward a little bit. Fast forward through a couple orbits, and there we go. Took a little bit longer for us to get an intercept than I would like, but in the end we got there. Get lined up for this orbit. It's going to take us a little bit to get around to it, but that's okay. We got time. There we go. Now we just gotta fast forward through time. Thank goodness for time warp in this game. Um, gonna fast forward through time to get around to our good, or to our maneuver. So our burn time for our maneuver is only gonna take 8 seconds, and our node is in 1 hour and 25 minutes and counting. So we're gonna try to start this burn at about node minus 4 seconds. That way, like I've explained before, you get half your burn before the node, half the burn after, and it works out just fine. Just still time warping around. Some good views of the Earth below us. Good thing we brought solar panels and batteries along board so we can not run out of power. That would be terrible. Down to 1 hour and 8 minutes. And now we're under an hour. Getting close to that node, that burn maneuver, plan maneuver node. And now we can auto warp because we're on the same orbit. Auto warp is really nice because you don't accidentally warp past your maneuver node, which is always really frustrating. There we go. Now we've got under a minute. I'm gonna just time warp again. Bring it right down to right before we need to burn our engines. There we go. We'll get engine ignition in 10 seconds. And ignition. There we go. Performing the burn to get us our intercept. There we go. We raised our apoapsis right up to 100 or 255,000 kilometers. And you can see right there we'll have our intercept. Little couple fine maneuvering, try to bring that intersection distance down just a little bit. Pretty good right there. Pretty happy with that. Now we'll change our what the speeds that we're looking at. We changed it from orbital speeds to target speed. So now we're looking at in that nav ball in the middle. It shows target, and then it shows a meters per second, which is the speed is decreasing. That is our relative velocity to our target. So because we don't really care about orbital speeds or anything like that anymore because we're in orbit, we just want to look at our relative speed to the thing we're trying to dock to. So once we get pointed retrograde to the target, retrograde to the relative velocity of the target, I should say, we'll time warp. And here we go. You can see us doing a Hohmann transfer. Right up to the first part of the station, the solar panels. This truss section also has a couple battery packs on it. That's would be included in the real station in this location. So And getting turned around. You can see we're only 2.6 kilometers away from the rest of the station so far. So we're going to burn to bring our relative velocity to the target down as close to zero as we can. Of course, it's very hard to actually get zero, but 0.8 meters a second difference is very good. So now we're just going to flip over and activate our reaction control systems. And we're going to point towards the target. And we'll perform an engine burn here. Bring us up to, yeah, right there, 32 meters a second. And then we will flip over using our reaction control system. Point retrograde to the velocities of the between us and the target again. And then we'll time warp here. You bring it in nice and close. Getting close now. We're going to start to burn to slow us down again in just a second. Bring our relative velocity down to as close to zero as we can. Good looking solar panels out there floating by themselves. And hit the brakes. Adjust. Hit the brakes a little softer. There we go. Good enough. Okay, now we need to target the docking port on the panels that are there. We'll do that in just a minute. And get adjusted a little bit. Now I won't talk very much during the actual docking, so we can just watch and see how that all works. But we need to dock these two pieces together. And now you'll notice the solar panels are one direction and the radiators are 90 degrees offset from that. And there's a reason for that. So in space, if your radiators are pointing towards the sun, they will not dissipate heat. They'll heat up themselves. It's hard to cool things down when you yourself are hundreds of degrees Celsius. So the panels need to be pointing towards the sun, and the radiators need to be on the same plane as the sun, so that they're edge onto the sun, so they're not looking at the sun themselves. So need to remember that as we dock, that we put this in the correct position. Oop, I hit the panel there. That's alright. Nothing a little time warp can't fix. Alright, just working on getting lined up here. Trying to maintain the correct orientation. Just little slow maneuvers, a little bit at a time. Get us nice and lined up. Rotate the back end around. Try to make sure our orientation is correct. Get them lined up there. Nice and slow. Keep rotating around, trying to get lined up with that docking port. There we go, getting close now. Start closing the distance. And, oh, and there we go, docked. Perfect. Check the, make sure we're lined up. A little bit off rotation, just a little bit. Let's, how far off is it? Yeah. Let's see if we can see from a better angle. Okay, yeah, it's off quite a bit. So we're gonna undock and we're gonna rotate just a little bit. It seems sounds easier than it's gonna be, I'm sure. Okay, set as target. Should be really easy if we don't really change anything. Just undock and redock back to docking mode there. And using the nav ball. Let's see. Okay, so we need to move to the left a little bit, and probably I'm not sure if we need to move back or forward or not from this angle. Oh, so close. Trying to power slide in. Oh, okay, we gone past it. Hang on, stop. Okay. Make sure we're controlling from that docking port there. Okay. All right. Let's try this again. Really slowly to get there, dock, and then undock and not be able to redock it because we were trying to fix the angle a little bit. But it's got to look nice. We're gonna come here a lot. It needs to look good. Docking in space is very difficult. we'll get it this time. We'll get it this time. All right, need to move to the left relative to our screen position. And oh, and come on, come on. Oh, we got it. We got it. And that looks much better. That is a lot closer than it was before. Perfect. So we're gonna undock this now, and we'll switch back to our upper stage and activate our RCS. Perform a maneuver avoidance, or a maneuver to avoid the station. Because I don't know if we can call this a space station quite yet, but soon, but soon. We're gonna point retrograde to our orbit, and we will burn our engines to perform a deorbit burn. Make sure we leave nothing in space. Goodbye station, and goodbye upper stage. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed this. That docking took a little bit of finesse, but it always does, doesn't it? So um, we will just get this deorbited, and then we'll see you next time when we finish up the next solar panel piece.